Hold on.
When we are doing the will of our true self, we are inevitably doing the will of the universe. In magic, these are seen as indistinguishable. That every human soul is in fact one human soul. It is the soul of the universe itself. And as long as you are doing the will of the universe, then it is impossible to do anything wrong.
Between everybody and his total environment.
I just wanted to maybe give a little intro. I'll probably hang out more so at the end after the interview to do the Gen stuff, to talk about Genesis P-ORRIDGE. I haven't really been too outspoken about that passing. It couldn't have come at a crazier time. It's actually been exactly 1 month since Jen's birthday, which is the day before mine, on February 22nd. And so they made it to 70. And forgive me if I misgender them. I'm such an airhead when it comes to certain things like that. So please catch me. Yeah, I've been waiting for maybe I guess a little bit more time. You know, I recorded this interview with Carl Abrahamsson a week before Jen passed, and they had just released an album together called Loyalty Does Not End in Death. How synchronous is that? I also, Uno, you were talking about, you were reading Who Killed Mr. Moonlight, which I finished probably about a year ago. And there's some kind of not, it's not defamatory, but it doesn't paint Jen in the best light. And of course, you know, Cozy from Throbbing Gristle in her book has talked about the long storied abuse. Of course, I think it's important to mention such things. I think it's important not to deify certain people, and I think that's where I was with Jen. Their work with the Temple of Psychic Youth, Throbbing Gristle, Psychic TV, all of that was very instrumental in my upbringing, especially in the forms of music and occult philosophy. But I'm always very careful to deify people. I think the Pandrogyny experiment is beautifully underrated as a romantic art kind of piece, a living art form. And if you notice the episode art, Divined by the Disruption Generator by Eric J. Millar, is the card Androgynous. I'll just show that. I wonder if you can see the words. It's a little bright. So I thought that was pretty fitting. But yeah, so, you know, Carl and I talk a lot about his work, basically his work on the documentary Inside the Devil's Den, which is his documentary, a very personal one and a very brilliant one, actually. I felt a lot of pride watching it. It's just really well done, about Anton LaVey. We talk about his wonderful magical works, his many storied works. Last time he was on the podcast, he talked about the Book of Culture, which I think he's probably more widely known for. His work with Vanessa Sinclair, Dr. Vanessa Sinclair, his wife, incredible stuff. They do amazing stuff via Patreon, and I had Vanessa on as well. So yeah, we talk about that, and of course we brushed up on the Genesis P-ORRIDGE stuff, and it's kind of haunting now to think about that. We talked about the genesis, forgive the pun, but the genesis of Loyalty Does Not End with Death. The record that they just released right before Genesis passed. So, without further ado, we'll just kind of get right in to my chat with Carl Abrahamsson returning. and we talk everything from talismanic living, total environments, Kenneth Anger, William S. Burroughs. I mean, it's a long and storied chat, and I'm very proud to share it with you. So thank you, Una. Thanks for everyone that's tuning in. I'll be back at the end for some more jib jab. So, Carl, I just finished Inside the Devil's Den, and congrats, man. That's
Thank you.
great work. Yeah, I
Thank
loved
you.
it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
felt there was like a bit of pride I felt too about LeVay and about you as a creator. And I thought it was wonderful. There's a lot of standout parts to me, but I just wanted to ask how long it took to kind of gather all of the interviews.
Yeah, well, it's first of all, thank you. It was indeed a lot of work and kind of emotional work as well. So it's hard to say because working on films the way I work on films is not something that I do like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So it did stretch over a period of time. I think the original impetus to do this came after the release of California Infernal, that book with the pictures of LaVey and Jane Mansfield. So that was back in 2016 or 17, something like that, and just brought a lot of memories back because I wrote the intro for that book, and it sort of tells the same story as I tell in the film, basically, about how we first met and what it meant to me. And then it sort of dawned on me that maybe my impressions weren't unique. I'm sure they still are very unique, but maybe other people who were there during the same time approximately had similar kinds of experiences. And I thought, let's just pull the strings and talk to the people that I've known for a long time, and some that are more recent acquaintances, and just talk to them. And everybody was, of course, super stoked about it because there hasn't really been a documentary about LaVey since Nick Bougas and Adam Parfrey's
Right.
Speak of the Devil. Right, that's the name, I think. Yeah, from 1992 or 1993.
And the
And
Feral Press.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and issued by Wavelength Video. So that's a good film. But time passed, and LaVey passed, and so I think it was time to make something really new. And of course, could have gone down the route of making a biopic, ambitious and bring in lots of archival material. But I was still, I wouldn't say obsessed, but I was still, preoccupied with my own original premise, my question, are there other people who had similar kinds of experiences? Basically meaning that when you left, you felt like something had hit you on the head, and that he had sown little seed of weird people and movies and books and interests, and it turned out that hunch was correct in a way. A lot of people felt the same way. So that was the premise. And then I just started contacting people, and that I knew had some similar experiences, and who also respected him. And still respect him. There are many people who were there, and times change and people change, but that have sort of been not backstabbing, but bad mouthing and changing their perspectives after the fact. So in that sense, I just wanted to not make like a strictly sunshine picture, but I felt no need to be involved in, for instance, family affairs or family disputes, and that's fodder enough for some other person to make a documentary about, but not me. I was just interested in what really happened when you went into the Devil's Den and you had these experiences, and I got hold of that great archival material, and it's just, it sort of bloomed. Once you start working on it, then strange things happen, good things happen, and synchronicities, and then suddenly, hey, there's a film, and now it's out there, and people in general seem to love it. I'm very, very happy about it.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's both personal yet revealing. There's it dispelled a lot for me, just as someone with a obvious kind of peripheral knowledge of what happened back in the day with him. I'm sorry, my dog's barking. But you mentioned synchronicities, and I just talked to Mitch Horowitz around Halloween, and he's been pretty much in the same kind of oeuvre of really dispelling and putting more of the wonderfulness that he actually was, or like the lineage that he really bestowed on a lot of us, I think, within the occult world. And I thought that was it's something I've been listening to. He keeps coming up and coming up, so I'm very I'm listening now.
Yeah, no, I think that one of the great things that I came to realize, of course, I realized when we met and hung out and during those San Francisco trips, but also something that grew on me over the years and decades that followed, is how unique LaVey was, specifically, well, in many ways. But if we sort of stick to this, occult umbrella or this occult cluster of perspectives, I think that he really brought some new things to the table, because anyone who goes into the occult, whatever it means, that so it's a kind of a miasmic quagmire in a way of many good things, potential good beneficial changes and self transformation and all these things, but at the same time it can also be like a jungle or a literal quagmire of symbols. You get stuck in the symbolic and you're fueled by something that never becomes reality,
Right.
And that can be a delightful little escapism. But for LaVey, it was all about using things that he had been feeling inspired by, and basically life affirming, life enhancing things and phenomena like music and movies, and turning them into occult matrices in a way, looking at things that really get you going, and then using them as tools instead of relying on some Kabbalistic tomes or some Golden Dawn magic.
Right.
I think that LaVey is so funny in the film too, when he talks about his experiences as a youngster, when he became attracted to the occult and working with these calling upon the angels and stuff like that, and he just says that it didn't work.
Yeah, that was my favorite part, when he talked about why not befriend the demons instead of protect yourself from them.
Yeah, absolutely. But then we're using the occult terminology, occult semantics.
Sure.
But then again, he affected things mainly with his writing and with his music and in the personal encounters that spill over into contemporary times through the people he met and affected. And it's as far removed from any kind of arcane or dusty stuff that I've ever encountered. Actually, I've met a few other people who have taken things to the ultimate contemporary perspective, to live in the here and now. And LaVey's approach was to sort of isolate yourself in the most beneficial of ways, creating your total environment and just indulging in all the things that fill you with the highest amount possible of life-enhancing energy, whereas other people could be, more extroverted and want to be part of the contemporary times and just indulge in all the technology and whatnot. But still, his language was unique, and he sort of catapulted occult thinking, I think, a lot. Because that era, of course, the 60s, when he formulated and sort of became a public figure or a figurehead, was sort of the epitome. That's when things changed, really. You could call it the age of Aquarius or whatever. Sure. But it's still, there was a turning point where everything had been old, and now suddenly things were new. People were fueled by by chemistry or new waves of thinking, and I think it's just he was part of that cluster, but a very unique voice. He did not want to be the figurehead or the spokesperson of some disgruntled collectives. He just wanted to sort of pep people who were smart enough to stay out.
Right. I think, yeah, also I wanted to inquire a bit more about his ideas of the preternatural, because I always looked at his form of Satanism, as many people do, as a humanist kind of approach, or,
Hmm.
a very pragmatic kind of distillation of ideas. And but as we were saying earlier, that he mentioned that he would work with spirits and whatnot. I was wondering if you had any kind of distillation of what his actual beliefs were when it came to the preternatural.
Well, I think that, a human being has a lifespan. In his case, it was like
67.
66, 67 years.
Yeah.
Some people live longer, some people live not so long. But the thing is that you change during this lifetime, and he certainly did. I think when people talk about him and sort of the image that is I would say dominant now in a way is that he was just, like you say, a humanist and is a rationalist in a way, and materialist philosophy, and that's absolutely correct. But there's no denying that earlier on, at least, when he formulated, even before the Church of Satan in the Magic Circle, there was definitely a respect for and a will to experiment with what's called, magic. So, and that's great, those the input that we got from Kenneth Anger in the film
Right.
too,
I was
when
going
he
to
talked
mention that.
about those Magic Circle days. It must have been so cool to be there at that
Yeah.
time. And also that program that's displayed in the film, those weekly meetings of all these wonderful esoteric subjects presented in such a humorous way.
Yeah, you're coming up with all my topics. Yep, that's exactly what I was going to ask about. Because
Yeah.
he taught classes about ghosts and vampires. My favorite though was the music and magic thing he was talking about. But yeah, I wondered if it was humorous though. That's kind of cool.
Well, I think with everything, he had a very humorous approach, but he wouldn't do these things if it weren't serious. Why would
Right.
someone waste time to get like a $2 admission at the door from 20 people? It's not a lot of money. So I think that he really cared, and he liked to be the person. He liked to be the maybe not expert, but to be a teacher in a way. And because he had a great knowledge, certainly when I met him, but I'm sure that was true also back in the 60s. A wonderful library, and he read a lot, and he hung out with really magical people. So yeah, absolutely, there was, if we return to this thing, magic or not magic, absolutely magic. That may have changed in the later decades, but I really don't think so. I think as he became a bit more reclusive, I think that he worked with his own techniques and perhaps didn't feel a need to share a lot of that, like meaning working with music as ritual, for instance.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that it can be a good thing to say, hey, no, I don't believe in this, I believe in materialism, and there's no gods, all gods are human creations, etc., etc. That's also been like a mainstay in the basic philosophy of the Church of Satan.
Right.
So, and I really see no contradiction, because if the ultimate arbiter of one's destiny is yourself, then you're free to believe whatever you want to and indulge in whatever you want to.
Right.
Whether
Both
it's
can exist.
yeah, it's like, you can absolutely be a materialist and see, the universe is based on like, physical interrelationships of atoms and smaller things and protons and electrons and whatever, or big processes too. That's inevitable. We could just open our eyes and feel with our senses that's the case. Weird things are going on. However, we have this thing called like empirical science, and they have basically just been name givers. They've been watching too and feeling things too, and they're just giving names and coming up with systems, but it's not really infallible, because if you do 100 experiments and they all work the same, then that's accepted as some kind of truth. according to the
Right.
materialist view. But what happens if the 101st one goes completely against that? So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of statistics and the law of probability. But anyway, I think that it doesn't take a lot of hovering from above and looking down at things and seeing there are weird things here that we have not given names to yet. And historically, that's been placed under the umbrella of the occult
Right.
most often. Phenomena that we don't know what they are yet, but they they exist as much as the stuff that we can explain. So it's kind of I think it's a pointless attempt to figure out, did he or did he not believe in magic?
Right.
Who
Right.
knows? I think he was certainly both.
Right.
Absolutely a believer in magic, but I think as time grew, he did not want to be involved with what he called occultnics.
Mm.
Therefore, I think he took on more of the role of being, no, I'm a strict materialist.
Because he called it pop by that time.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And, he was a remarkably well-read, dexterous man. His taste in music and film is just stunning to me, and I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask a little bit about, going more in depth about your experience, because it seems like a lot of his ritual too was discourse. He loved being surrounded by people and talking late into the night and
Mm-hmm.
exchanging ideas and reading poetry and just fascinating, like be-ins almost,
Yeah.
And if you could explain more about like your first meeting with him and what that was like.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, the prequel to the story was kind of mind-blowing in the sense that I'd recorded this song with my band, Sweet Jane, which is about Jane Mansfield and LaVey and, their relationship. And when that came out, Genesis P-ORRIDGE said that, you should really send this to them because they would think it was, it'd be a cool thing. And I thought, literally, what the hell? And then I got a letter back, from him, which is super nice. And thank you for the, endeavor and keeping her alive and, these kinds of things. And then I was appointed as a member, and that's a cool thing, got a membership card. And of course, I wanted to fuel this kind of inspiration even more. So I went there, I think the year after, in 1989, the first time. And it was just to, like I hope I've conveyed it in the film. You got there very late at night, and it's usually the same story for most people who were allowed in, so to speak. Got there late at night, sometimes go out to dinner first and then come back to the Black House. And then it was just like, coffee and talking and movies and listening to music. And it sounds so banal in a way, but it was so charged also, because if you, like I was, if you have this sort of romantic notion about what was going on in the 60s and this was the actual place, where the Church of Satan existed, and I got to see the ritual chamber that was very, very rarely used. And stuff like that. And it's just in a way like a beautiful museum of very satanic things, but also, the library and even the kitchen and like movie posters. And he was certainly a collector. So there was a lot of stuff. And just to be in that environment was cool. And then he was also very, very a friendly character, very friendly. I mean, there was a reason. It was not like an open house. He made it possible for me, for instance, to come there and say hi. And then after the first meeting, I again thought, well, that was beautiful and interesting and stuff like that. But then it just went on, So in a way, the thing with this White Stains record was the door opener that allowed for me to come in. But then my own yeah, it's a sigil, and then I guess my own behavior and the good times and sort of the resonance we felt made me be continually welcomed, and that was great.
I was just taken aback by just especially Blanche Barton, who previous to this film I hadn't really heard speak, and like she really stood out to me as somebody I would love to chat with and know more about. But just the way she described just kind of this anarchic magic that everyone had. And that's
Mhm.
been another tether for me, especially in the series of these podcasts, is I'm figuring out, this beautiful want and need to create your own kind of spiritual trajectory and magical praxis or an art.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know, it's just fascinating to me. I love that there's this tether that keeps coming up about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, things happen when the time is right. I mean, it's a vague kind of banal cliche, but it's also very true, I think, is that convergence and synchronicities and, minds melting and the third mind aspects, you
Right.
can't really force it. It just happens when it happens. And once I had set my mind on making this film, it was very it took some time, but it was generally swift and well greased, and no mishaps. It was just I don't know. It's a beautiful production, and I think that has to do with the fact that now the time is right.
Yeah.
The world needed to see this aspect of LaVey and not give in to one side's bad mouthing, nor the some other sides uh, acolyting.
Right. It was very personable, and everyone, there was good mention of, he had his moments, he had his fits, and
Hmm.
he was a human. And I loved the dispelling nature of the film, but it mystified him a bit for me as someone that, has been just continuously misconstrued. Like his lineage
Hmm.
is continuously
Yeah.
ragged on or misconstrued. And I think there was a big fad. It's even mentioned in the documentary. I think there was a big fad to kind of badmouth him within like a culture.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's just weird to me how it keeps getting this roller coaster of his lineage.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. But I mean, that's the problem. When you die, you can't
Right.
really control these things. You can
Yeah,
leave
yeah.
a legacy that's either your writings and other things you may have created and recorded, and that can speak for itself. And then you have people who knew you and who can talk for you. That could of course swing both ways also. It could be
Mhm.
someone who didn't like you, they will badmouth you, and people who did respect you, they will speak favorably of you. So it's beyond your control. But I think that in LaVey's sense, there is an extra dimension to it, and that's the fact that he's not just a minute figure in occultism or anything like that. He was a great American cultural icon,
Mhm.
not even subcultural icon, a real cultural icon. The Satanic Bible has never been out of print, and you have the bullshit aspects of popularity, meaning like American Horror Story, where he's portrayed so
Oh
badly.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible. So he exists on the map, and he always has.
Mhm.
And I think maybe on a magical level, maybe my film and similar expressions are counter forces to that kind of dilution that comes from cheap, trashy things like American Horror Story. Because if I were portrayed like that after my death, I would absolutely haunt them. I would
Yeah.
curse them from beyond, because it's so trite, and
Yeah,
and they even call him by name. So
I
it's
know.
it's kind of pathetic. So I would say that my film is counteraction. It's a medicine against that specific thing, because it really, really pissed me off.
Yeah, I mean, lineage is a great thing to talk about,
Yeah.
especially haunting through art and creative endeavors. I find a lot of similarities between him and Adam Parfrey, the more I
Oh
learn.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's it's the lineage is
yeah,
obvious. Adam really learned a lot of things from LaVey. And I'm not talking now about, to make a ritual, you do this and this and this. It was just this kind of hungry attitude that
yeah.
can be pruned and disciplined. And, when
Unapologetic. Yeah.
unapologetic, and also quality and a sense of humor. So I think, Feral House is a beautiful testament not only to the genius of Adam, but also to LaVey. I wouldn't say wholly to LaVey, because the Adam drifted into many things,
Right.
but just the attitude and the quality, for
Yeah.
sure.
And it was just so good to see Kenneth Anger speak. I don't think I've seen him speak outside of, your clips and documentaries and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wanted to talk more about this. I forget the term, but the intentional environment, the
Total environment.
total environment. Yeah.
Yeah.
If we could, just kind of talk about that more, because I think one of my ongoing missions in life is to customize everything in a way,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems to be cross-pollinating with that idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a good way of expressing it. I mean, it's your own expression, your
Mhm.
own term, and I think that's a great thing. Customizing. It's
Right.
like one could call it like bespoke life,
Right.
bespoke lifestyle, and I think that it goes beyond that too. I mean, you could look at it from that big lifestyle perspective, meaning, I want to fill my life with as many meaningful things and people as possible to maximize my feeling of, life enhancement and, just life affirming lifestyle.
Right.
But that's good. You can do that if you're intelligent and, devoted to the cause of leading a good life. But the total environment is also something more specific in terms of magic. Most people perhaps have a designated corner of their room for an altar or something spiritual or magical. I think that's, inherent in the human psyche to have that,
Right.
to have a holy space, to have a little. That could be, if you have space big enough, you can have a designated room, or if not, you could go to a church. Something. It's just, I think we have a need of that thing. But the total environment, just like most things stemming from LaVey, goes beyond this thing where you have, something holy on an altar, because we associate those things with our monotheistic heritage, and the counteracting that by becoming, Satanists and all these things. But the total environment really doesn't need to have anything to do with those like spiritual or magical or arcane things. It could also be pure talismania.
Right.
Staying inside a three-dimensional talisman that you've created yourself could, for instance, be sitting in a room like I'm doing, with bookshelves filled with absolute, picked volumes that resonate and by osmosis send out their intelligence and inspiration and things like that. So in that sense, it could also be a design thing. You design things in that room, for instance, or space in a way that's particularly appealing and inspiring for you. Play some music that's, and it goes beyond just, just playing a song that you like or reading a book that you like.
Right.
It's like an immersion.
Yeah, it's filling every corner with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a conscious immersion into something that will take you over, in a way, and that's the whole point. That is to be in that sense, it's why the use of the word talisman is good, because a talisman is something like you charge with projection, and then it radiates back this thing, magical power or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Psychic resonance. So he said that it was beneficial, and Anger has been talking about these things also, because in a world that's so collectivistic, so stupid, so blatantly self-destructive, and that also spills over into becoming destructive for other sentient beings, other humans, or animals. Basically, we're living in end times in many ways. So I think the creation of your own total environment is something that has how shall I put it, has to do with self-preservation. And self-preservation is something that is very, very high on the list of priorities for the LaVeyan Satanists.
Right.
So it all goes together. But then, of course, as is mentioned, LaVey mentions in the film too, these total environments that are more like theme parks or conceptual environments. And we've
Much
been
like the Black House, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I was thinking also of things that LaVey mentions, like Disneyland and Disney World. And
Right.
For some people, it might be strange. What does he mean? It's usually kind of a pain in the ass to be in Disneyland. It's fun, but also hectic. But at the same time, it is a construction of something where you are completely at the mercy, the good mercy of an environment that you're just in there no there's no noise from the outside. It is an escapism. You don't have to think about your trials and tribulations. You're there to relax and have a good time. But recently, there's this series that Vanessa and I have watched, Westworld. I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the first season was great, and then as usually it sort of dwindles out. But the idea is something that is very, very LaVeyan, and LaVey loved the film, the original film of Westworld. So that kind of thing where you enter something that is a construct, and it's a construct that can be deceiving, as in Westworld, but it could also be something that's highly inspiring. I mean, I guess that's why people go on recreational trips. Like they could go to yoga retreats or some kind of other retreats. It's to be immersed, no outside pressure. And if you extend that back into your own life and control it yourself, then you don't have to be at the mercy of anything potentially terrifying or negative. You're just in a resonance chamber of good things.
It's fascinating to think too about doing it within the mind, because there's a lot of allusion to building mind palaces and partitions and rooms inside the mind and constructing. So I love the idea that there could be a talismanic mindset.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that brings me to one thing that for the sake of time had to be cut out of the film. But like I said, that one of the premises was that, wow, what happened? Did LaVey actually did he have some kind of plan, or why did I leave the house feeling that, whoa, I've been knocked over my head with Ben Hecht, or something like that. So Larry Wessel, who is a filmmaker and also a friend of LaVey's, and just a great guy. LaVey, when Larry was there, LaVey brought out this poem. If I'm not mistaken, the poet's name is Don Blanding. You'll have to check that, Don Blanding, and who wrote a poem that was actually in a bestseller volume, sold 100,000 copies or something, called Vagabond's House. Vagabond's House. And Larry couldn't figure out, why the hell is Dr. LaVey, reading this poem to me, but it all made sense, as things do, because that poem is about a vagabond who basically sits and fantasizes about the house that he is one day going to build, and what he's going to put in all of the different rooms and chambers of this vagabond's house, of this mind palace. So this vagabond is building his total environment inside his mind. And it's just when these things and how LaVey favored the total environment, it's just a completely a programming of Larry's mind. And now Larry's, so many decades later, Larry's actually working on a film called Vagabond's House, and that has to do with, he's been interviewing, it's a documentary, so he's been interviewing people who are weird collectors.
Cool.
They're obsessed by collecting specific things,
obscurities,
and they are then they are then building their own vagabond houses, and Larry's putting them all together as little rooms in his own vagabond's house. It's a beautiful thing, and it just goes to show that culture is the most potent form of magic there is. You can instruct people, and you can do it in a blatant way. Most likely people would just go, no thank you, I'm not interested in demagogia. But you can seduce people with culture, you can inform people with culture, and most importantly, you can inspire people with culture. And that obviously, in LaVey's case, lingers on decades and decades after he died.
One thing I wanted to touch on too, and you mentioned it with Westworld being his favorite film, he was a huge fan of artificial partners, or I see a lot of parallels to what like maybe the transhumanist party has become, and I was wondering if you could talk more about his obsession about that.
No, I mean, obsession is a very good word. It was not a mere interest or a little fad or a hobby. He constructed real life he constructed humanoids, basically redesigning mannequins, like store mannequins, and then dressing them up and talking to them, and just having them, for instance, in the Den of Iniquity, that bar that he had in the Black House. And his take on this was that he was so fed up with humanity and the sort of the stupidity of humans. So that's a kind of a very misanthropic creation. And when you talk to people who are not so savvy or psychologically dynamic, people mostly think of, well, that's for sexual purposes. I don't know when you were born, but when I grew up, there was this, the inflatable doll was a thing. Sure. In all the sex shops, you get inflatable, fuck dolls. And in that sense, that has become almost like an icon or a mythic emblem of when people think of humanoids. Now this is changing a lot. And I would say, being a devout LaVeyan in a way, that a lot of it has to do with his occult influence. Because what happened, I would say, in probably in the mid-90s, and again, the sex thing and the pornography thing usually always drives technology in different directions, because whatever is sexual, pornographic, potentially something people want in their own home for sexual pleasure, they're willing to pay for. And what people are willing to pay for, technology and corporations are willing to invest in. So what happened in the mid-90s was that, for instance, an American company called Real Doll started making these, sexual partners with of latex, and they were very, very lifelike. I had the opportunity to see them at the CES thing in Las Vegas over a couple of years, and they really developed. But basically, they were sexual entertainers, non-sentient.
Right.
But the thing is that it started changing, and that's exactly what LaVey predicted, is that it's better to have a doll and have a good relationship with a doll than to have a bad relationship with a human being. They're out to con you or be smart asses or frustrating or rip you off or cause a ruckus, seek an argument, all these sort of human traits. So he built his own cadre of people, and it was not necessarily ideal people either. It was usually memories from his own youth, like drunks he had seen, drunk ladies who'd pissed themselves, and sailors on leave and stuff like that. So it was kind of also an atavistic thing.
That's crazy.
Rebuilding things from his own youth in 3 dimensions, and he could interact. I don't know what he did. It could be, for instance,
quite beautiful, actually.
It's incredible and incredibly magical, because it's so, as also the film shows, he was very psychologically savvy.
Right.
He really knew how the human
called himself a Freudian.
Absolutely, and blatantly so. And also he lauding Wilhelm Reich in the thank you list, or the reference lists and stuff like that. It's really a pioneering thing to do, because when he did that, that was basically only 10 years after Reich had been incarcerated.
That's right.
By the US government. So So anyway, I think that with the artificial human companions was something that he created for himself, but he was generous, so he shared it. And then whether people do that in a satanic environment, I don't know. But I do know for a fact, now that we're seeing this robotic development with AI and stuff like that, is that the little ugly gadgets have taken over that role as artificial human companions. They're not humanoid. They have, in a way, human sentience. They can speak and we can understand it. And I can say something and they can talk back. So there's kind of a pseudo human thing going on. But LaVey was more interested in something that evokes a humanity. Perhaps not the most beautiful humanity, but at least something that gives something back to you when you project something on them.
Yeah, that's super interesting that it was from memories of people and, like the kind of disheveled, destitute types too.
Yeah.
Because he had talked about these humanoids as being kind of the perfect human in a way.
Yeah, for him they were.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting to see that like the renegade in him even like was, superimposed on, humanity as itself too. He enjoyed the destitute and the disheveled.
Oh, absolutely. And the sleazy.
Yeah, and the sleazy. Well, I'd like to talk more about maybe your projects now, not to, totally focus on Anton, because I know you've got tons of stuff in the woodworks. Yeah. So I really enjoyed the Loyalty Does Not End with Death. I thought that was a very cool, it's your work with Genesis P-ORRIDGE. And I remember you talking about like it happened every 30 years.
Yeah, let's see, every 14th year. Every 14th.
Okay. Yeah. So
it's
doubled it.
Yeah. It's a trilogy of records. The first one came out in 1990, and then the second one in 2004, and then the third one actually in 2019. So it was 1 year extra. But it was again something like. You start out with just collaborating on something, but time is interesting. Time has a creativity of its own, and then after a while you feel, shouldn't we do another one? And then after an equal amount of time, as it turned out to be, shouldn't we make another one? And then you can then call it a trilogy. That doesn't mean that it was a trilogy originally conceived in 1989.
Right.
But it turned out that way, and I think they go very well together, and it's just like this ambience of spoken word electronics. It's kind of timeless now. It's not modern, but it's not old school either. It's just sort of free floating in between, and that's something that I really like. And just recently the book Sacred Intent came out too, and that's a very similar project because it's a long-ranging project. It's basically an anthology of all the interviews and conversations I've had with Genesis from 1986 up until 2019. So that's a long span. And same thing there, if you had done these things just randomly, you can of course anthologize a book. You can anthologize them in a book when a certain amount of time has passed and it becomes substantial enough. But we actually decided on making the book not back in 1986, but say in 1998, something like that. And we have since then carried on interviews, not for publication in other fora, but accumulating them as discussions to be saved and to be integrated in this book that just came out. So in that sense, it's been a very interesting project, just like the records, to see if there is consistency or if there's radical change. And you can say with Jen, it's always both. There is a consistency of clear signal and beautiful philosophical clarity, but there's also radical changes going on along the way, like with the Pandrogyny project and so many things. So I think this book is something that well, it won't, no one will be able to make something similar. Someone can anthologize other people's interviews over a long period of time, but we had in this book, we have my voice and Jen's voice, talking about interesting things, and it's like just one conversation that began in '86 and ended in 2019.
Yeah, that's very cool. I've always been really interested to hear more. I know from White Stains to now, I know that you've always kind of mixed what I would call audiomancy, or just kind of, transdimensional wayfaring with music making and
Yeah.
creating. And I was wondering if, you could talk a little bit maybe about your process then to now, like what your experience with in that trajectory has been. Very fascinated by it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm, working with many different things, and I have had problems with that at times. This standard thing of, maybe you should focus on one thing and become successful, but I haven't been able to, so I can,
either.
what can I do? But basically the music for me has always been like a soothing agent in between the rational writing mind and the perhaps, the visual mind of the filmmaker. And, it's important to make music because it's completely non-intellectual, completely non-rational in a way. At least, taking part of music. When you construct the music, it can contain some of those elements. But still, I think that when you begin, when you're young and you're hungry and you're easily enthused, you're easily inspired, that's the phase of being enamored. So when you make music in that early phase, it's usually paying homage to what you've been inspired by.
Right.
So I think White Stains, for instance, was many bands in one. We were like a psychedelic rock group, and we were slightly weirder sounding, and then we were also electronic, and some attempts at pop music, and some just dark ambient stuff. So in that sense, that I think sums up pretty well that this phase of being enamored by music in itself, the potential of music. And then, as again, the decades have passed now, I think now I'm at a point where the actual music, meaning the sounds, they are a container for a magical charge. And usually the charge comes with or from or via my words. And that could be poetic, meaning like non-rational, but it could also be rational, meaning like a straightforward,
Like a narrative.
spell or narrative.
Yeah.
Exactly. But what's changed is that I have now almost exclusively for the past, I don't know, 5, 6, maybe 10 years, exclusively worked with talismanic aspect. I would not make music that is not meant to have something happen. It is magical, because if I were to do something else, that would be entertainment or fluff, or it could be but it could be wonderful. It could be deeply evocative or beautiful or emotional. But for me, it's like with everything, I just need to have that charge in there to be efficient. I can't explain it in any other way. I do make soundtrack music for my own films and stuff, and there I wouldn't say that that has a charge. But of course, you could say the music helps create an atmosphere in a film that's mine, and that absolutely contains a charge. Yeah. So in that sense, it's by proxy in a way.
Yeah, talismanic music creation is a huge part of my personal practice as well. And I'm always interested to hear from other folks, like kind of what that process may look like as you're kind of constructing things. Are you going with kind of analog soundscapes? Are you putting yourself in transcendental states? Are you know what I mean? Are you like all the intentional parts of the track mean everything, right? I love that. Yeah.
I think that for me, it's not so. I don't know. I seem to function like this. I have so much to do you know, and that's a very beautiful thing. So I need to compartmentalize stuff. So what has happened over the past year, for instance, is that I've just said to Vanessa, and it's like, this coming weekend I'm making music. You know, I have to compartmentalize and say that, you know, everything else has to wait. You know, I'm just going to work, because it's also the thing with, I like to have everything visible in the sense that of gear, you know, little effect boxes and synths and stuff like that. And I mean, I make some stuff in the computer also, but I like the hands-on aspect. So I love to have all these things out. But when you can't have it out continually, then you're, you know, in a way forced to be focused when you can have them out. So I think that what happens is that I make a lot of music during a fairly condensed amount of time, and that also includes recording poems or spells or these things, and then I just put it together, and then that's done, and that can go into this release or that soundtrack, and then I just move on to some other work. And then I long again for the time when I can drag it out again, you know.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating stuff. I love what you do with your wife, Vanessa Sinclair. Like, you've got some great collaborations, lots of cut-ups and visual and musical. One thing that stood out to me was you guys have a Patreon goal of $666.
Yeah.
When that's hit, you guys are going to release the first like exquisite corpse book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's the Patreon adventure has been wonderful, and what happened was that when we reached $500, we said that now we're going to do a monthly TV show, and we are actually doing that. We've done the one episode, and we're going to record.
Mind?
Yeah, the 23rd Mind TV show. Yeah. And the new episode will be out, if not on Monday, so it will be out on Tuesday this coming week. So that's a monthly thing. And then we thought, what the hell do we do now? You know, where do we go from here? And we have both just now wrapped up 2 heavy books. I've written a new novel, and Vanessa has wrapped up her book about scansion in art and psychoanalysis, which is super interesting. But now we feel that, whoa, this is fantastic. You know, it's not that we will have more time, because you only have a limited amount of time, but the allocation to these projects, they're now gone. So that said, we thought maybe we should write something together, you know, like an exquisite corpse kind of novel. And since we're both really into the cut-ups and, you know, the experimental form, this could be very interesting. So when we reach that goal of 666, I think we only have $100 to go on Patreon, then we will publish 2 chapters a month, one each new moon and one each full moon.
Very cool.
And we'll just keep it going until whatever story there will be ends. You know, it'll be a full-fledged weird novel, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's exciting. Let's talk about the novel a little bit. I'm very interested to hear how your process was doing something fictional.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it, and I feel that if there is some kind of core, you know, if I at gunpoint would have to choose between my many, you know, creative expressions, I would say, you know, please don't kill me. I'll stick with fiction. You know, fuck everything else.
Yeah.
Because that again is during my escapades and explorations. Fiction is it's the most rewarding to work with, but it's also the most powerful in terms of magic, because it's like people lower their guards. And I'm not saying this that, you know, I write these things to manipulate people, but what I mean is that it's a beautiful form of communication that works on very deep levels. And the level that I'm after always is inspiring people, you know, to think for themselves or check this out, whatever. That's my life task in a way. So the new novel is actually my second. It's called The Devil's Footprint, and it's, if I were to define it, I would say it's a satire in which Satan is given carte blanche, or carte noire in a way, from God to clean up the mess of the earth. You know, things have gone too far, and it's, you know, the normal, you know, conservatism versus radicalism, and it's, you know, and the same battle that we can read about in the newspapers daily, like Square. I mean, our times are so extreme that it's actually like we're living in a satire. Vanessa and I usually say that, you know, American politics today is like something that Burroughs and Ballard and, you know, Jonathan Swift would write. No, they couldn't even write the absurdity of it.
Cannibalism doesn't even come close.
No. Well, just wait.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so basically, the novel is, I think, a satire about the times that we're living in and what I feel needs to be done. But of course, it's not really me speaking. I can sort of filter these things, but it's a very, you know, sardonic and humorous kind of Satan figure who starts to set things right again, and that in itself is a very radical process. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it is, I hope, something that will be appealing to people because of the extreme measures, the extreme poetic licenses that are taken in the book. I think they may have a cathartic value for the readers. People will feel, oh wow, this is so outrageous and absurd. Whoa, this might be criminal even, but I love reading it. You know, because of the fact that people have such pent-up emotions these days. You know, not only with politics and, you know, the coronavirus and mass psychosis. It's just extreme times, and if people can't let off steam and have those cathartic moments through culture, then it could be very detrimental to the individual human psyche.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds very prescient. Do you have plans for its publishing?
Yeah, but the thing is, it's so I haven't worked anything on that yet, because I literally finished it just like about a week ago.
Oh,
and
congrats.
Vanessa's going to read it. I'm going to read it again, and then I'm going to try to find the best possible literary agent for it. It has, I would say, I mean, I'm hubristic. It has huge commercial potential in times like these, because it's kind of provocative and it will make people angry, but it will also make people happy. So I think that the main thing now is to find like the most intelligent and savvy literary agent that can really place the book in the right publishing environment.
Yeah, sounds like the plan. Do you guys have, I'm sure you guys have tons of other stuff coming out. Is there anything else that's more like soon? Other than just your amazing Patreon and 23rd Mind and stuff with Genesis. And I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. We are going to the US soon. We're going to have a book launch thing for Sacred Intent in New York together with Genesis on March 19th. And there's also a film festival in Brooklyn that are showing some of my films. Also over the weekend, over the spring equinox weekend. So that'll you know be fun. But I think in terms of project, we are working on a new book together about outsider art, specifically in the mental health perspective, and then also Fenris Wolf #10. And some new art books, and just wrapping up a documentary about a beautiful Swedish photographer, and you know, just endless stuff.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I'm the same way. I like to be multifaceted, but you guys are definitely paragons of of artistic intent, and I really appreciate you guys. All right, well, Carl, thank you so much for chatting with me.
Thank you, and I hope we can do it again. It's always a pleasure.
Always, yeah. And I am a patron now, so I will definitely keep up on everything I can.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right, Carl, you have a wonderful day.
Take care. Bye. Bye.
I will take this time to say what I wanted to say a little bit more about Genesis P-ORRIDGE. And with Carl's permission, because we did record the interview literally a week before Genesis passed. And as you probably heard from the interview, and if you don't know Carl's work already, him and Genesis have created a plethora, a multitude of works together. And Carl Abrahamsson also recently published a book of interviews that he's been doing with Genesis for decades. It's called Sacred Intent. You should check that out. But with Carl's permission, and via his Patreon, he was the first one I looked to when Genesis passed, because of their long and storied, illustrious kind of career together. Carl was one of the first Temple of Psychic Youth members, and oh, you are ahead. Yes, I am ahead. And he released via Patreon a poem that he wrote the day that they found out that Genesis had passed, and I thought I'd read it. It says, a poem for the poet. That time has come when time moves on amidst a brave creator, amidst a bold narrator, of magics and journeys of loved ones now gone. The trip is just beginning, just drifting, shifting shapes, get a new suitcase, travel in style. All of this is possible, all of the time. Let's never forget the messenger, the message, the process, the temple, in intricate details, intuitive twists, curved hand, crooked smile. Baba Mago Supreme, calling on the spirits to become who you are with sacred intent. Undoubtedly, his name was Master. Undoubtedly, her name was Master. What a blessed honor to move on, and your mischievous company. Loyalty does not end with death. You cut it up so well. Scissors and glue, still shines somewhere your sparkling supernova express. And here and now, in the morning after the night, I fall in love with the light. First, it was, then it knew it was, and then it was IT. Carl Abrahamsson, March 14th. 2020. I also wanted to, I talked a little bit about it in the beginning, but, you know, I've been very vocal about not deifying people. I think it's more important now than ever to humanize them. And of course, Genesis was no perfect being, but I think that's why they reigned supreme in my life. Not because of the bad, but because of what they generated. And I have here my long and dirty, dusty, totally full of notes copy of the Temple of Psychic Youth's Psychic Bible. It meant a lot to me, especially in generating We the Hallowed, which is our kind of international collective. And I just wanted to read something that I marked way back in the day. Like I said, this book couldn't be more earmarked and dog-eared. I mean, and I have a terrible habit of writing in notes. I guess that goes back to the Carl Abrahamsson talk when we talked about customizing everything and talismanic living. But anyways, this is from Freedom of Salvation, a discourse on being radiqueer. Genesis says, not only did I have an empathy that a L-if-E built upon and with creativity enhanced by travel was viable, but I was compelled simultaneously to believe as a metaphysical byproduct and art as a holy calling. A mission or a quest that once recognized could never be discarded or abandoned, no matter what the consequences. You cannot forget once you have felt this, and it becomes your duty to serve with honor this campaign as you survive and interact with others of your army, tribe, and rogue genetic kind. And with those words, I felt the calling, and I pretty much felt the impetus to create We the Hallowed. They go on to say, and I think this is true now more than ever, especially with coronavirus, social distancing, and a lot of alone time that we're feeling. But we're so lucky to live in a day and age where I can talk to you guys in a live chat. I can converse with you no matter the quarantine. And they say, next, go looking for these unorthodox, like-minded individuals, have undying faith that they exist and are probably looking for you too. Offer stimulation, speculation, exchange ideas, collaborate, coordinate, share information and theories, recommend sources and names of activators you admire who have come to your attention via media, myth, or synchronicity. Nothing is stronger in its anarchic potency and cultural resonance than a pack of previously lone wolves. Be prepared to do mundane, tedious, and dull tasks to demonstrate to yourself and those cooperating with you both your understanding that you are involuntarily bonded service to a higher calling, art, and that your ego and public recognition are not your motive, nor can they, nor will they seduce you. So I thought that was extremely potent, and especially when it comes to lineages, which Carl and I talked pretty extensively about Anton LaVey's lineage, how it can be malformed, how it can be, misconstrued or taken or misused. It's important to relish in the humanity of the people that have sparked inspiration in us and revere them in those lights, but not to deify, because we're all here to haunt on with art. I want to thank John Aside, Philip Blair, thank you for joining. Sorry if my timing was misconstrued because I'm in Mountain Standard Time. Derek Hunter, Una Song, always a pleasure. Jasmine Amarick, Out of Mind was here. Forgive me if I'm forgetting anyone else, but this has been a true joy, and I have been kind of quiet about talking about my thoughts about Jen. It's been a month since their birthday. It's been a month since my birthday, and I've always felt synchronicities with them, so I appreciate you guys stopping by. Please, if you didn't catch the beginning of the Carl Abrahamsson chat, check it out. It's one of my favorites. It's all about talismanic living and creating your own magics, as is the tether with PRAGMAGICK. And with that, I love you guys. Stay safe, stay warm, be happy. Say hi to Mary. And good night. Haunt on, y'all.